Because of the following special program, Private Benjamin will not be presented this evening.
Hello, Miss Linda.
Hey, Jay, how are
How
you?
you, girl?
I'm doing good, doing good. You look a little tired. You were out partying with all those famous authors, weren't you?
Oh my God, Lord have mercy. I wish somebody just said to me a few minutes ago. Actually, they messaged me in Facebook Messenger and said, how are you doing? And I'm like, I feel like Riggs in Lethal Weapon. I'm getting too old for this shit. I don't know how Kathleen, the current president of Writers and Publishers Network, does it. She's of a little bit more advanced age than I am, and she gets through the days and is full energy and full of life. And I'm there at the end of one day being like, please kill me, just kill me. I am ready to go back to the hotel and die. So yeah, I flew down Friday morning. Basically went to the hotel for a little bit before we had to go out to the campus and get set up, get the tent set up. And then Saturday was the show. And then Sunday was also the show. And I had to head out earlier to be able to get to the airport to get through LA traffic to get my flight home. I am all itchy for some reason. To get my flight home back to Vegas. And, it's an amazing experience when you realize just how big of a show it is. And we're talking about the LA Times Festival of Books that I just attended this past weekend. It's a monster show. I mean, just anybody and everybody that's involved with publishing seems to be there. There's, unlike a lot of places, it's not all about good grief, I'm itchy. It's not all about the authors. It's a lot of readers. It's primarily readers working their way through the booths. Most of them looking for free stuff. So we were running the Writers and Publishers Network booth. So I'm the vice president of that organization. It's a nonprofit organization that made up of all industry professionals of, publishing, cover design, authors. It's all about education and making sure that people have the knowledge they need. Really, really worthwhile. We had a bigger tent this year than we had last year. We had a much better location than we had last year.
Ooh, that's always good.
And no rain this year, which was,
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I mean, for those of you that are not familiar, I guess I always forget the intro. I am Jay Hartman. I'm the editor-in-chief of Misti. This here is my gal pal chum and author, Linda Kay Hardie. I am here from Las Vegas, Nevada, and Linda is here from her undisclosed location in somewhere in northern Nevada. Um, the humidity is really what just about wrecked me. I
Yeah.
am so used to now living in the desert, and it's hot but it's dry, and it was 80 degrees with humidity, and I just wanted somebody to like dunk me in a pool. Like it was just does it get that humid up where you're at?
Oh no, no, no. High desert here. What I like is I haven't been in a long time, but I love to visit San Francisco. And, San Francisco is a good walking town, but it's got
Oh
hills like
yeah,
this. But
yeah.
going from the high altitude here to San Francisco, sea level, I can just walk anywhere
Yeah, I mean,
because
when we lived in the Bay Area, I mean,
altitude.
we lived on the peninsula, so 30 minutes south of San Francisco. But yeah, you talk about a walking city. They did a one year they did the Out of the Darkness overnight walk, which is the walk
Ooh.
to raise. Oh, that's right. I'm on YouTube. I got to be careful. Raise money for unaliving awareness. And people who have chosen to unalive themselves.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so there's a big fundraiser where you walk through the entire city pretty much, and I did that one year, and that's pretty amazing at night. But you do realize, like, even with all the hills, it's actually a very walkable city.
Yeah, and coming from, up at this altitude, we get more red blood cells because of living in the thinner air up here. Because
Yeah,
Vegas, I guess, is pretty much sea level ish. I mean, you're
yeah,
not
it's
mountains.
it's got to be sea level. I mean, we've got mountains around here, but there's not a whole lot of elevation to us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, uh, yeah. So in San Francisco, usually when you ever you visit there, it's chilly and clouds, and so the humidity doesn't bother me when it's cold and raining. Ooh, I love rain. It's a beautiful day today here. Nice
But
thick clouds and
you can see here, it's a beautiful day with uh, for the for those that aren't familiar. I can't remember which way I turn my head. That is the Misti volcano outside of Arequipa, Peru, for which Misti Media takes its name. That's our little benefactor there, um, full of hot ash. Uh, you know, I have to say though, the campus at USC is gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. Um, the guys were hot. That helps too. Uh, there was movable scenery everywhere. Um,
Oh
but it
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it was nice being back. Also, kind of in a one of the things I like about going back and doing that event each year is that um, it's nice to kind of be on an educational location. You're attracting people that are not just readers, but they're kind of thoughtful readers. Like they're out
Hmm.
there because they're genuinely interested in the authors, and they're genuinely interested in the books and what's coming and what's new. And they're wanting to go to the sound stages, all the various stages that are set up. So they have stages for audiobook. So like if there's a different featured audiobook author or presenter every hour or something, and then they have a little signing booth off to the side that when that's over, the author moves to the signing stage, and they do that. But they had one. So they had one for audiobook. They had one for children's. I want to say there was one for mystery. Our tent backed right up to this whole little village that was nothing but romance authors and uh, romance publishers and romance organizations, which was kind of cool because we still have an imprint that we haven't actually launched here at Misti Media, which is Miraflora's Nights, which is supposed to be our romance and erotica imprint. And
And one big genre that just has expanded hugely in the last 2 or 3 years is the romantasy, the
yes,
fantasy romances. Woo!
yep,
And I can see that being something, with the
yeah,
Nazca and Miraflores.
I took a little bit of time to walk the booths, and
Good.
I won't mention the name of the organization, but I was not treated terribly nicely. I would say I found them a little bit rude, and it reminded me of when I was starting out with my former publisher that shall remain unnamed, and trying to build the reputation for that publishing house and trying to say, hey, here we are, we're new on the block, but we're attracting talent and that sort of thing. And I remember one of those first ones I went to, I've never been treated so badly as I was by Mystery Writers of America. And I have no trouble telling anybody about that, because they really should have done better. But I guess I kind of expected to feel a little differently this time, because I had done 13 years with the publisher that shall remain unnamed, and I thought there might still be enough of street cred in the hopper that it might, like talking about who some of my former authors were and that sort of thing would have opened the doors a little easier. And yet, I got a pretty cold response. And I'm thinking to myself, if you're an organization that's set up that you're trying to help your authors get published, and you're trying to, find avenues for your authors to submit their work, I can't tell you how many authors came to our booth saying, I'm looking for a publisher. Here I am, the publisher, actually knocking on your door and saying, send me your authors. I'm open to submissions. And they're like, eh.
Yeah.
And
I
didn't get it. I don't understand it.
I see some of that from the writing side, where there are so many authors, so many writers. They're not published authors yet. So many writers that they want to be published by the big 3, 4, however few it's gotten to be, the big boys in New York. They want to be published by those publishers. Never mind that though they don't do promotion or anything anymore.
Right.
And they're only looking for like celebrities and influencers with zillions of followers. And the real growth in publishing is the small presses, where an actual nice human being looks at your book and will talk to you and say, hey, this is good, or hey, if you fix, and hey,
right,
and work with you. And you can't always just count on, never could, on the big publishers.
We got into a discussion in the WPN booth, because one of the people who had purchased table space to sell their books was another indie pub, and then ironically sharing that table with her was another indie pub who last year he hadn't started his publishing house yet, but I had met with him and had given him a lot of advice, and we had talked to about his potential launch and things like that, and he was back this year as an actual publisher, which was kind of cool. But we were talking about the fact that people often ask me, like, who's your competition? And we were talking about the fact that when it comes to the indie presses, we don't do that. We're not in competition with each other. All ships rise when we work together on it. And I guess if you're one of the big 5, you in New York, you might look at it that way. But I mean, it hasn't been my experience with indie presses. I've never had another indie press say to me, "Oh, we can't talk to you, or we're not going to work with you because you're our competition." Like that's literally never come up.
And that's just as bad as how writers used to be, and maybe still are in some areas, where it's like, well, I don't want to do you other writer. I don't want to do you any favors, because even though you write romance and I write crime stories, we're like in competition. And if you get a contract, that's one less. No, it's not that way. Even
Well, you know,
even
that's
with
that, but see,
the
that's
big
what happened with remember that's what happened with Goodreads. Goodreads used to be the place that it was like the big social place until authors started like deliberately doing these negative reviews, trying to tank other authors, and became
yeah,
just this really, really poisonous place to
yeah.
go. And people have said to me, you know, how come you're not active on Goodreads? I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that. I don't need that kind of drama. I got enough drama. I don't need that.
Life throws enough tomatoes at me without me going and standing there next to the fruit stand saying, "You throw
And
it
I'm
this
and I'm
way,
and
throw the
I'm
rotten
sorry
ones this way."
I'm sorry I keep looking around. As usual, Zeke is being unruly when I'm live, um, wanting his
I should
attention.
I should know
Um,
better than to wear black when I'm on Zoom.
well,
One of my new T-shirts.
the good thing is the camera's far back enough; it won't pull back. It won't show the fur. Oh, that's
Oh,
cute. Sees girl.
yep.
So yeah, I mean,
It-
I was kind of surprised to get sort of a cold reception like that,
yeah.
um, and honestly, the show was, you know, for people that don't know, you know, I am neurospicy. I've got I'm definitely on the spectrum, and social stuff is my big Achilles heel. I'm not good at it. Um, I come across as being better socially than I actually am, just because I can put on like a mask. You know, it's like a costume I have to wear when I need to be. Um, but I mean, the crowds were insane. And they said that the Saturday attendance, they had 5,000 more people than they had had the previous year. That's a lot for one
That is
day.
a lot.
That's plus 5,000, you know, and we're talking it was probably already well over 10,000 attendees to begin with. So it's one of the biggest cultural festivals in LA. And it's one of the biggest book fairs, uh, you know, book events going. But I would love to have seen more of the show, but honestly, I couldn't bring myself to get out there and move around with the giant crowds. And there were so many cool, just little individual booths, like you know, an author picked up booth space, and it would be somebody you'd never heard of before, but you couldn't help but be intrigued because, hey, this is somebody who spent an awful lot of money on a booth space just for themselves, you know, or
Yeah.
these or little micro presses where they've got, you know, maybe one or two books out and that's it, and you know, really just sort of like at the beginning of what they're doing, and but filling some kind of really small niche. You know, I saw a few horror publishers like that were just like,
Yeah.
you know, really, 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 you know, tiny micro presses for horror. And you're like, you see folks like that, and it's like, you picture like that little kindling in a fire, and you want to just like blow on it, you know, help it get that, you know, help it get just a little bit bigger.
Well, that's pretty much how I got started being really published, because my first book was through a traditional publisher, a small press back in 2001, tiny little press, children's picture book, very expensive, but great press. And then I didn't do anything for years and years, and I started writing short stories and was looking around and found presses that did horror and like my first short story publication was, what was it called? Strange Stories, I think was the anthology. And they wanted stuff that was just unclassifiable. And hey, I got a story here. And that's what I did, is these little teensy micro horror presses and strange presses, and worked my way up to the small presses that are actually putting out lots of books, like Misti Media.
So, did you ever go to any of these conventions or or fairs with the idea of finding a publisher and like pitching your story and seeing if you could line up a publisher at a show like that?
Well, I actually did a, a little bit of that. I didn't go in with the idea of doing that, but when Worldcon the World Science Fiction Convention. When Worldcon was in Reno back in 2011.
Hang on one second. I just realized I didn't have my comments turned on. Hi, Walt. Hi, Al. Nice to see you guys. I was not ignoring the chat. I just completely forgot to click the comments button to be able to see them. Sorry about that. Go on, Miss Linda. I interrupted you.
So I got to go to Worldcon. And actually I was teaching at the university at the time, and I actually got to be in Worldcon and present a paper at Worldcon. And Vonda McIntyre's Starfarers. Yeah. And the string theory and anyway,
and you know that Jan Katouche that you and I talked to a couple weeks ago, he was
just up in Seattle, right?
He was at the most recent Worldcon.
Yeah. Anyway, while I was there, I did run into some publishers and kind of, hey, here's what I'm doing, and I'm a participant here too, and in the academic track. And I did kind of schmooze a little bit with some publishers at Worldcon, some small presses, and nothing came of it because I didn't have anything to submit, but I did do a little of it.
I just had people though that were coming to the booth. Now, mind you, I wasn't there to be taking pitches. So, the point was to be there to represent Writers and Publishers Network and, be able to talk about our organization for people that were coming through and, try to boost our membership and things like that. But, one of the reasons why I worked the booth is so that if people do come by with publishing industry questions, I can show them the value of joining WPN. So I sit there and we'll talk to them for a little bit about whatever project they've got going on, give them some advice, and, usually wrap it up by saying, this is just a taste of what you get if you're part of Writers and Publishers Network. But I don't know, I don't know when people lost touch with reality when it comes to publishing, because I got to tell you, some of the people that came up to the booth to ask questions about publishing I think it's a good thing to believe in yourself and to believe in your work. But for example, I had one person who said to me, well, I need to know how to get an agent. And I said, why? And, and he said, well, I need to get, I want my book published by one of the big five. And well, we'll get there. He wanted to get his book published at that point by one of the big five. And I said, well, okay, I can see that, but you realize that agents have become, a bit more of a hindrance really than a help over the years, and that you don't necessarily need an agent to get in. It's just another form of gatekeeping. And some agents, not all agents. I work with plenty of really good agents, but some agents know that if they, really target something specific, they'll get in with whatever their favorite house is, and never look at an indie press or a micro press, or we're never even an option for any of their authors because they're so focused on the advances and how much money to put in their own pocket. Yeah. But he was adamant that first of all, he's writing literary fiction. So we've started here with how much money he's going to earn. Now he's literary fiction. So now we can cut that about down to here, because we know the market for literary fiction is. And
maybe it was literary fiction told in verse.
I was going to say that I'm not sure which does worse, poetry or I mean, for the most part, poetry is the lowest performing category of any writing category.
Except there are some really, really good small indie press poetry publishers.
Absolutely.
That's where the real poets go, is to those places.
But the only problem there, of course, is that, I mean, you definitely do not go into writing poetry to make money. Like if your goal is to be a published poet and like live off the residuals, oh no, honey, I'm sorry. No, somebody sold you a bill of goods. No. But he actually said to me he wanted to get a publishing contract with Knopf because he was of the same writing style as Thomas Mann. So he's sitting here, and I said to him, "Hi, Stu. Good to see you, man." So I said, has anybody read your work and said to you, this is reminiscent of Thomas Mann? No. I said, how many other things have you published? Nothing. How have you published in, where else have you published? Well, I published in some literary journals. So here's this author, unpublished except for literary journals, that thinks he's going to get an agent on the first try with his first book, that he's going to land a contract with Knopf, and that he's going to be marketed and as successful as Thomas Mann. And I'm not there to extinguish people's dreams, but dude, where is your sense of reality? And it's well, I'm in an MFA program, and so that'll be that was gonna be what opens up the doors. And I'm like, dude, what I said to a lot of people during the course of the 2 days, when somebody would say, something along those lines, I'd say to them, it's the same thing when somebody says they're an actor. The answer is always, really, what restaurant do you work at? And it's really kind of no different from, what do you do? I'm an author. Really? How's your retail job? Right? So for him to make this giant jump, and I was like, how have you gotten this far without anybody sitting down and setting some reality for you? Because you're gonna get your heart stomped when you go out there and you have to legitimately, submit somewhere, and what's going to happen that first time you get a rejection? And they're like, I knew Thomas Mann. Thomas Mann was a friend of mine. You, sir, are no Thomas Mann.
Right over his head, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't say that out loud to him, but yeah.
No, but
it would have gone probably.
But you've taught students. What was the students you've taught? Do they all think? Were they all thinking they were going to be the next big thing with no humility behind it? Or, what's been your experience as a educator?
I've seen a lot of that, because when I worked when I was part of the work yes, pay no, part of a big popular writers conference in Central California a bunch of years ago. Used to do manuscript editing for people, and we would do critique groups at the conference, and people would come in with this big sheaf of paper and come to the critique groups, which usually were about a dozen people. There'd be 2 agents and an editor from a New York publishing house, people that were writers and speakers and stuff like me and some of the other people in the group. And sometimes we had some big name authors, but there'd be, a few each of the professionals, and then half the table was amateurs of various kinds. And there would be people that would come in with a big old manuscript, and I can't tell you the number of people that would come up to me and say that, if I were in the children's critique group that night, they'd say, you should read my book. You should read my book. And I want to know, where can I send it? And I'd say, okay, big sheaf of papers here. I'd say, okay, what genre of children's is it?
Yeah, no idea. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, what do you read? Oh, I don't have time to read.
Oh, I don't read. Yeah. And I don't read in the genre that I write.
Mm-hmm. And so I go, that's nice. Well, let me just tell you, yeah, okay, good luck. Go over and talk to Steve over there.
There's somebody waiting for you in the parking lot. Just head out that side door. Although I will say there's I also have, I mean, for each sort of delusional person, there were some really, really wonderful interactions with people who were kind of at the I don't know what to do now stage, right? Like they've taken the time, they've written their book, they've had it edited and proofread. It's in the shape they wanted to, but they just genuinely don't know, what the next step is, or they haven't decided, do I want to be a self-published author? Do I want to pursue a publishing contract? Those conversations were wonderful because I was able to sit down with them and say, okay, yeah, and it's the same thing. You've experienced it with me too, but I always ask my authors, how do you define success? Like if your book were to be published tomorrow, what is your measuring stick to be able to say it's been successful? Is it about the amount of money that you made from the book? Is it about getting it in as copies as many hands as you possibly can? So how does it measure up? So shout out to Rome. I don't know if you're seeing this video. I know you were going to check out our channel, but I sat down and had a really terrific conversation with a gentleman named Rome. He and his brother have been writing a Dungeons and Dragons based fantasy series. They've got something like, over a 15-year period, they've written like 11 books in the series, and just life has gotten in the way of, they both have military careers, and Rome's working on getting out of the military at the moment for some health reasons. And, but it's like they're trying to circle back and really do something with what they've written so far. And it was just this really wonderful conversation to be able to sit there and like creatively spitball with somebody who, really wasn't familiar enough with where to go. And I had such a good interaction with Rome actually the day before the show opened, because he had come up to the booth while we were still setting up, and I invited him to come back the next day with some questions. And he actually went home and like got in touch with his brother, and they came up with a series of questions to bring back to the booth, for him to bring back to the booth. And it was so nice to be able to sit and have this developmental conversation with somebody that you see the sparks going off in their eyes of, as everything starts coming together, and they start getting excited about the possibility.
Listening and asking follow-up questions that show that they're listening. And
I had a really, really sweet couple. I'm pretty sure they're from India, because I know they had sent the manuscript back to somebody in India to look at, but their son had written a book and had passed away. And before he had ever really gotten a chance to finish the book, really, or to like finish the edits on it. And their whole reason for being at the festival was to either find a publisher for the book or to figure out how they could get the book out to the masses. But it wasn't at all about making money on the book. It wasn't at all about, how many copies are we going to sell? It was all about, this is our son's legacy. This is all we have left of our son. And, how do we get the book out there for people to see and read? And, they were so anxious to find a publisher. And I said to them, this is going to be really weird for me, but in your case, I would absolutely not go with a publisher, and I would go self-published. And they were shocked. They really thought that they need, they're like, yeah, but we're not that we're not marketers. We're not, that's not the kind of thing we do. I was like, yeah, but you don't need to be. You have your son's story to tell. You have your son can't be there to tell that story. So now you are his voice. And if anything, it's going to be far more authentic for you to be doing readings and making appearances. People are going to be so much more into what you have to say because you're the parents. It's not some publisher coming up with some marketing rhetoric or how fancy is the cover, or and who's concerned about editing and polishing in a way that might take away their son's voice from the book, and turn it more into a marketing expedition rather than an honest look at their son's life, through his writing. And I could tell they were really genuinely surprised that I would go down that route. But I just really strongly believe that if they were gonna be, the benefactors of their son's writing, and they were gonna be, taking on that responsibility of ensuring that his words got out there, I really felt like they needed to keep as much control of that as possible.
And it's like, I've never been good at sales of any kind, but give me some allergies up here too. Give me something that I believe in,
Right.
and I can share that enthusiasm with you, and many times get you excited about it too. And so it's, selling is involved, but that's not what I'm doing. It's,
Hi, Regina. Nice to
Hi,
have you
Regina.
back with us.
but yeah, it's not selling of like, would you like fries with that? Buy this bigger car.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're interested in this? Me too. Look at this.
But just think of how different of an experience it would be if they were to land a publisher who says, okay, you know what? I think you should change this, and the pacing is off here. But it's bad enough that it would be changing so much of what their son wrote. But it's the fact that the son's not even here to say, yes, I'm okay with you changing these words. Yes, I'm okay with you altering my story. He's not there to give permission.
And what they've got, they as independent self-publishers publish what they've got of his, and they've got the enthusiasm of, this is our son and his story, and we'd like to share it with you because we don't have him anymore. The sincerity of that,
right? And who better to know
sales skills?
Yeah, who better to know how their son would have said something, how their son would have phrased something. They sent the book off to be edited by somebody in London, but it was somebody they really trusted, and they were involved in the process, and in the end it was and still an honest representation of their son. And I was just like, you need to hold on to that. I did talk to one woman who had written a book on egg donation, and the trouble she had gone through trying to get pregnant, and how she had actually died on the table for 15 minutes while trying to give birth, and all these complications that had happened. And she prefaced everything with, "I'm not a writer." And I said, well, that's okay, because if you're working with a good editor, that good editor is going to see through that and see through the story behind it. And she said, well, I'm willing to do whatever. And I said, no, you never say that. And she was really surprised. And she said, why? I said, because you're writing an autobiography. History is history. History has happened. History is real. You don't get to go back and edit history. You don't get to go back and change your life to suit a publisher.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
You don't go back and change what happened to you, your feelings, how you reacted.
Exactly. How you were in the moment. That's valid. That's real. Unless unless it's a fictionalized account of what happened, but it's, in this case, it's not. It's an autobiography. Why would you be willing to let a publisher come along and make, I get it if you're going to make grammatical changes or something like that, But if you're writing something that personal, you should never be willing to just tell an editor, yes, I'll do whatever changes you want to make you happy to get it published. A good publisher, a good editor is going to say, no, we need to keep the focus of the story. Like she mentioned that she's going through a divorce right now, but at the time, her husband was incredibly supportive and was, really had her back, and she could really lean on him. And she said she felt a little weird about it. And I said, and she didn't know whether or not to cut him from the book or whatever. I said, no. I said, you leave him in, and you leave him in the way he was. If he was supportive and all that, then that's important to your narrative. It doesn't really matter where you are now. I said, plus, if you are getting divorced and he has the opportunity to see this book, he's going to know that you don't view him as a monster. I said, if anything, maybe it will be cathartic in a way that when you guys do go your separate ways, he'll be able to see in the pages of the book that you valued what he did bring to the table, what he did contribute to the relationship in your time of biggest need. And she was really happy to get those kind of answers. And I gotta say, I got that butterfly feeling in my stomach that I do when I feel like there's a book that's just meant to be for me. So I have her sending me the whole manuscript for me to take a look at and see what kind of shape it's in. For those of you out there that aren't as familiar with publishing, there are two different kinds of contracts you can do. One is called a developmental contract, and one is called a publishing contract. A developmental contract usually is basically, hey, I see the potential of your book, but the writing isn't where I feel it's publishable right now. What I'd like to do is give you notes to go back, rewrite. I want first right of refusal so when you get it into the shape that, after the notes I give you, come back to me within 90 days with a revised manuscript. If I like it, I'll move forward with a publishing contract for you. If it still doesn't quite work where I think it is, either we can choose to continue to work together for another 90 days, or we part ways and maybe, there's another publisher that's a better fit out there for you. So I did give her those options because, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of work to do on the manuscript. I tend to like to take stuff that's further along in the process. But yet there's something really, really compelling about her story. And, she did the smart thing. She brought her son in the next day, and he's the little boy at the center of the story, the one that she risked her life for. So, getting to meet him in person is, was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, big New York publishers, they're not going to have that sort of experience because they don't usually talk to people. You're talking to people, and you get that gut feeling that, neurospicy people and empathetic people have. You get that feeling, you think, I gotta look into this. There's something here
right.
that, and you don't always know what it is, why that you and the other ship are passing in the night, but you need to slow down and see.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly couldn't stop thinking about her and thinking about her story even after I had left the show for the night. Like, I got back to my hotel and I was still thinking about her and her book. And I was like, okay, that's one of those things I really pay attention to is if I'm still feeling it that strongly, that it's something I've got to at least look into. It's something, same thing with Rome and his brother. It was like, there was something I just immediately glommed onto that I liked about Rome, but I just really felt close to him really quickly about, his writing and how much it meant to him and his brother.
You were picking up you were picking up the enthusiasm that
Yes.
and joy that he was radiating, and
It was
that's something you can't, you know, people can't fake that sort of
right.
vibe, aura.
Right.
Because I get those. Sometimes I call them auras, but you know, people can't fake that. You know,
It was
it's a
it was an
genuine.
immediate feeling of like kindred spirit kind of thing. I mean, he
Uh-huh.
and I are both tremendous nerds, so I mean, and both happily, admittedly so. So it was like that instant kinship thing of like, okay, we're nerds. We've been nerds since we were little, and you know, nerds will rule the world. So, um, and you know, so I mean, those were some of the interactions just of people that were coming in and you know asking publishing questions, but there were some people that were selling in the booth that were just so wonderful. Hal Eisner, who was a legend in journalism, TV journalism in LA, has, I believe he's retired now, wrote a book. What a charming individual. Oh my gosh. I mean, just one of the nicest people I've ever met. Um, Gretchen, who I always forget her last name, but she does illustrated kids books, loved her. This wonderful woman named Rosalind, I refer to her as my show girlfriend. Um, I'm not sure how old Rosalind is. I don't want to be insulting, but um, I think it'd be fair to say she's well over the senior citizen mark. Um, and and published her first book well after the senior citizen mark. But she was there last year with a book. She had written another book in the year since, but she brought her grandkids to help, and they're standing out there with pamphlets of her book going, come see my grandma's book, come, my grandma wrote a book, come see it, and like bringing people to the booth, to which, oh my god, you just talk about, they were just the sweetest kids. And her husband, from what I understand, they've been married like since God was a boy, and this look he gets on his face of just deep, deep love and admiration for Rosalind, watching her do her thing. Like, he's so proud of her. I mean, you just see it completely in his face, and he's out there huckstering for her and bringing people to the table. And just the second he gets somebody to the table and she's talking to him, just this look on his face of just sheer admiration and love. Like, we should all find somebody that looks at us like that when we're doing something that's that proud of us. I mean, it just it was it was amazing. There was another girl named Marissa, who has been really, really successful and might be one of the most successful people that we had in our booth. But her dad was there as her kind of plus one. And I mean, you talk about a dad that's just like 100% champion, right? Like, I think he's an attorney by trade, so not necessarily a creative venue, but boy, he is there for his daughter. Like, he is setting up her stuff and bringing people in, and I mean, just so supportive of her in every single way. So I mean, there were all these really, if you went to it thinking that it was just, you know, authors selling books, you'd miss out on all these other wonderful little things that are happening, you know.
And that's the thing that you get when you bring together any sort of book related festival, is people that love books, love ideas, and love people in sometimes like a hands-off sort of way. I mean, too many people, but no, but the books, I mean, they are magical. They let us do things, they let us see things, they let us learn things, you know, learn empathy, just all sorts of things.
But it definitely proves the point that I've always said, which is, you know, the book could be read and could be forgotten, but readers want that attachment to the author. They want to know They want to know about the author. They want to know what drives the author. They don't care about a sales pitch from the publisher. Hey, Terry, thanks for being here. Appreciate that. I told a lot of people at the show, I said, nobody ever wakes up in the morning and says, gee, I can't wait to see what Penguin puts out this month. They wake up and say, when's the next Stephen King book coming? When's the next John Grisham book coming? Where can I find a book about XYZ? They don't care about the publisher behind it. Nobody, and much like being a stage manager in theater, you're doing your job if they're not talking about you as the publisher, right? Like in theater, if people know that you're doing your job as a stage manager, then you're not doing your job very well. And I think the same is true in publishing. I mean, the publisher represents the brand, and the brand is the author. And I think that focus needs to always be on the author. And so like I said, I wasn't there in a Misti Media capacity, which I think was better for it. I mean, I could have been there. I could have shared a table. I could have sold our books, but part of me was looking for content, and then part of me, kind of needed my own jump start to my creative juices to be able to come back to Misti, after a weekend of being in that community and go, okay, does this change anything that I want to do for the publishing house moving forward? Does it change what I'm looking for in authors, or does it reinforce any ideas that I had going down there?
Because you were there, and I know this is important to you, you were there in an educational capacity. Writers and Publishers Network, we can help you. Here's what we got. Here's how you do what you want to do. You
exactly.
writer people and you reader people, you can find out about, and all that sort of education stuff, where you're at the same time sucking in knowledge yourself.
Right.
And then you come home and you look around at what you're doing and you say, okay, I'm doing something good here. And I think that what I learned there, I think it can help here. And that's different than if you're going down there with a Misti table and books, let's sell some books, and let's get some authors.
I think it would have been a very, very different experience if I had gone down there just strictly about sales. I think I would have come back. Not to knock
sales, but sometimes you need the education part.
Yeah, I think if I had just gone down there to do book sales and come back, I would have just been like, okay, I'm done selling books for the weekend, and I wouldn't have had any of the other experience that I did of meeting authors and helping set people on the right track to what they want to do, or solving problems based on what I've learned over 30 years of being in the publishing industry. It was being able to see that light go on in people's faces where they had genuinely been lost as to what to do next. And yet here I am in my head, I've already plotted out their next 10 steps. That was good for me. That really was. So
I've done that before when I was on the board of Friends of the Library here, and that was when my picture book came out, so I was able to kind of sell my picture book too, but mainly I was there to sell libraries and reading, and there's nothing like it when you're engaging with people and you see that spark, and their aura kind of sparkles, and that
So I do want to shift gears because it's so funny. Folks that are watching, I had said to Linda before the show, I'm so tired. I hope I don't fall asleep in the middle of the show. And she's like, well, we only do an hour. We don't have to do an hour if we don't want to. And now I'm looking at the clock going, geez, we're already at the end of the hour. Where did that time go? I did want to mention our big event that's coming up on May 16th, which is the first annual Misti Media Book Fair. Very, very excited about this. We are going to be supporting a fantastic organization called First Book. First Book, what they do is they help make books affordable, either free or greatly reduced for kids in disadvantaged neighborhoods, helps teachers also get materials at super low cost to be able to take care of their students, because we know teachers, God bless them, are not, they pay an awful lot out of their own pockets due to the fact that, there's no budgets anywhere for teachers to take care of their classrooms. Really worthwhile organization. So what we're doing on May 16th is we're getting, I'm part of a giant reseller community that I got pulled into by a guy named Johnny, Cajun Roots Reseller. And there's quite a few representatives of that community here tonight: Regina, Al, Terry. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a big book fair on May 16th. And the reseller community is going to come in and they're going to sell books and book adjacent stuff like tote bags and audiobooks and comics and whatever books they have on hand. And everybody has pledged to donate a percentage of their sales to our charity. We've got a $5,000 goal. I hope that we completely smash that. Some people, like Regina, have already started incorporating it into their auctions, which I really, really appreciate. Misti Media authors will be on hand. They'll be either selling their own books or doing readings. And then we'll have the ability for folks to make regular cash donations through the website at First Book, so that everybody knows it's legit and not us pocketing in our own coffers the money that's coming through. If it all goes well and I don't have a nervous breakdown in the meantime of trying to get it all prepared, hopefully this will become an annual thing, and we'll either stick with the same charity or we'll bring in a new charity each year. But I really think it's important that I've always wanted to have a charitable aspect to my publishing. I really couldn't do it with my previous company, which shall not be named, just because other entities were less concerned about charity and more concerned about charity starting at home. And I firmly believe you can do both. Stu, this is going to be held on our YouTube channel. It's going to be a live event starting at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific on the 16th. So 100% online. And I think as of right now, everybody is going to have a 15-minute block. But if folks want longer, I'm willing to do it. I've said that I'll do it like a Jerry Lewis telethon if I need to. If I need to go 24 hours straight to raise money for this organization, then I absolutely will. It's really, really important to me. So we've got that coming up on May 16th. But before then, this Saturday, I'll be back on the train shop hop that we do on the last Saturday of every month. That, again, is part of the big reseller community that we're a part of. And that's hosted by Cajun Roots Reseller Johnny. I will be interviewing Vicki Irwin, who is one of our authors. She has contributed to several of our anthologies, including ones that Linda's in, as a matter of fact. So she's in. I think you're both in the same. Volume of Perp War Pumpkin, if I'm not mistaken. If not, you guys are in opposite ones. But she's also in a really, really hilarious anthology that we did called Yeet Me in St. Louis, which was the whole purpose of that book was crime fiction that had to include the St. Louis Arch. And it was the first in a series of books that we're doing that take place all around the country. This year we'll be releasing one for Virginia, one for Texas. Linda and I will be working on one for Nevada. And Linda doesn't know it yet, but she's going to be editing the volume. So I haven't told her yet that she's going to be the editor of the book. Shh, don't tell her. Gonna get her a little bit of editing chops on the old resume. I think she's going to be awesome.
A little more editing.
Yep. So so that we've got that coming. So do look for us on the Shop Hop. We are in the second to last position. So we are at. Thank you, Al. We do not want Linda to know. Shh. I believe our time slot is 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific for the Shop Hop. I know we're in the second to last spot before my buddy Tooch, the Tooch man who brings up the caboose on the train. So that's back here on this channel as well. It will be. We are doing ours live with our interview with Vicky. So do hope folks will stop by and see that on Saturday. We are off from here next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, if I'm not mistaken, Linda, that's going to be our Mother's Day show, correct?
I believe that was. Isn't Mother's Day? I don't know.
I think we figured out that was the one show that was going to happen before Mother's Day. If so, Patrick, I'm so glad you stopped by, Patrick.
Yep. Mother's Day is the 10th, and we're doing our next one on the 5th.
All right, so yeah, our next Misti Media Live is actually going to be talking about Mother's Day gifts when it comes to books, and how not every single mother is into romance and cookbooks, and a better shopping guide for moms for books, and not just recommendations from our catalog, but recommendations Linda and I have for everybody from other books that we've read in categories that we think fit well for all kinds of moms. And I do mean all kinds of moms, because there are lots of moms out there. But I'll be telling a few stories about what used to happen back in the day at Walden Books with Mother's Day, and how sexist, how completely and utterly sexist Mother's Day was in the publishing industry back then. It hasn't changed a whole lot, unfortunately, when it comes to Mother's Day retail, but it's gotten somewhat better. Linda, tell the kind folks what you're working on these days.
Oh gosh, my brain's all afluster because I finally got a car. My Subaru broke down a couple years ago. Died of old age. I'd had it literally forever. And
hold on, Linda, you'll appreciate this comment from Al. Get your mom a schnauzer. I'd rather have a schnauzer than flowers. We do not disagree with you over here. Absolutely. Go on,
yeah.
Linda.
So anyway, yeah. So I'm working on some writing projects. Working on the Nevada SCBWI mentorship program, where we go one-on-one with authors, with writers that are working on children's books from picture book to YA. And I just met with my mentee today, and he's doing so well. It's so exciting, because today things kind of clicked. They clicked for me. I thought, oh, here are the words I need to say for him to hear exactly what I think. And I saw the sparkles when he realized this is it. And it's a story that I'd heard him talk about it years ago, and I thought, wow, that sounds great. And then suddenly, here I am helping him work on it. I love this. But yeah, some writing and.
I mean, Sandra Murphy, you guys will see Sandra Murphy just popped into the chat. Sandy is one of my line editors. She handles Sandra Murphy Presents, which is a specialty line where every kind of crazy idea that she comes up with, we're going to try to let her play with it and see what she can do. She's also giving me a huge help with White City Press, which is our mystery imprint. But Sandy is working on a new line of books that are basically 3 novellas with an intertwining theme. And Linda is gumming up the works because we're waiting on her to get her story done on Duckies for the first volume that we're supposed to release. Well, so everybody give Linda a lot of hell for not having her story in yet.
I tried to write on the bus. The trouble is the people on the buses are so interesting. I couldn't pay attention to my writing. And watching the people going, okay, now that one's going to be in my next crime novel. That guy and that woman, they're going to be in my next horror story. I mean,
we got to get you some blinders to wear when you're on the bus, and then.
Well, see, now with the car, I'm not on the bus for 3 hours a day.
And we'll have to get you on replay. Just the wheels of the bus go round and round, and we'll just have to play that over and over until you go insane, as if you had gotten stuck on It's a Small World, which has happened to me. That has happened to me at Disney. I have been stuck on It's a Small World, and yes, it is the absolute hell that you think it would be. There is no doubt about it. Dancing dolls and hearing that song over and over again for 6 or 7 minutes, you will want to jump out of the boat and swim for safety. You absolutely will. Your sanity will not be left. All right, Miss Linda, I love you.
Love you too. And hi, Zeke. Love you too, Zeke.
Yes, Zeke's birthday. He turned 7. Our marketing mascot just had his 7th birthday. So thank you all of you who sent nice wishes through my Facebook page for him. He greatly appreciated that because any kind of attention he gets, he's very appreciative of. So for now, we're going to go ahead and head out for this evening. Thank you all for stopping by. Another Misti Media Live. We'll see you again. You'll see me this Saturday again on the Shop Hop. Linda and I will be back in 2 weeks for our Mother's Day episode. Until then, find yourself a really great book and come tell us all about it. Take care, everybody.